All right, beautiful people, happy Tuesday. It is the last day of the month. Mom, shalom, shalom, Jen, grand rising. It is the last day of the month, May the 31st, 2022, day 122 of year 4 of reading through the books of the law and the prophets and of the 4-year consecutive day count, day 1140. We're going to begin the Lord's 5th book in the OAHSPE on page 122. And then if we get time today, we will hop over in the meditation book and pick back up in that section we left off on yesterday on page 162. All these twos. Day 122, page 122, and page 162. It's pretty cool. Okay, so let's get started. Father, thank you for watching over us throughout the night and all of our days, and for the ability to comprehend truth and know it and feel it deep down in our shanana when we come in contact with it. Read a good morning. All right, y'all, page 122. The bottom, now we're reading the earthly account, which is under the heavenly account, the Lord's 5th book. Being contemporaneous with the book of Osiris, son of Jehovah. As Osiris is of the higher heavens, so is the Lord's book of the lower heavens and of the earth for the same period of time. Chapter 1. God apportioned certain of the earth for the tribes of Shem of the ark of Noah, a heavenly place, seat of mountains, and lords, all wise, and from his wisdom directed her too into his pastures. Her too, son of Neph, born of an egg, descended out of the highest heaven. He was a most gracious Lord, and in deference to smote against the rocks of heaven. So when the egg was broken, one half of the shell ascended, the other half became the foundation of the world. The evil voice, Satan, spake to the children of men and polluted them, whereupon the great spirit spoke in the firmament of heaven, saying, To hear too, son of Neph, I bequeath the tribes of Shem forever. That's interesting. We can keep reading. To her too, let me go back. Verse 3. The evil voice, Satan, spake to the children of men and polluted them, whereupon the great spirit spoke in the firmament of heaven, saying, To hear too, son of Neph, I bequeath the tribes of Shem forever. For they have withstood Ramanius, my everlasting enemy. So hereto became Lord of Shem, and he banished Ramanius down under the earth, where he busied himself building fires for the furnaces of hell, whereof the smoke and flames come up through the earth, and are called Agni, volcanoes. Okay, I think we're good on Facebook. Nobody said that. My thing popping up. Okay. Thus came evil from good, but that everlasting wisdom should prevail with mortals and the spirits of heaven. All light created Visvasrij, law or unnatural law, as a creator to abide forever. Before this time, there were two things in the world. Voidness was one, and Vakis was the other. Vakis, Vak, speech, in brackets after Vakis, Vak, it says speech, spoke. Okay. Vakis, Vak, speech, spoke, and the world was. So it came to pass that voidness was divided into two parts, the seen and the unseen worlds. The unseen spake in the wind 3 sounds, E, O, E. And it was called by mortals Eolin, god of the wind. So Eolin showed himself in 3 colors, yellow, which is the highest color, blue, which is the coldest color, and red, which is the warmest color. Eolin said, Out of my 3 sounds are all sounds made. Out of my 3 colors are all colors made. He was the all master. He said, 3 worlds have I made, the earth world, which is for mortals, the all high heavens, which is for pure and wise angels, and the intermediate world, which resteth on the earth. Eolin said, 3 lights have I created, the sun to rule the day, the moon to rule the night, and the burning fire for the use of man. 3 spirit lights created I, Ruk, which issueth out of my soul, Shem, which cometh from my lords in heaven to the souls of men, and Vas, which cometh from the spirits of the intermediate world. I'm going to keep reading. I was just thinking about something. Okay, I went back over here to where it says in verse 3, here too, son of Neth, I bequeath the tribes of Shem forever. Back over here. Let me read this again. 3 spirit lights created I, Ruk, which issueth out of my soul, Shem, which cometh from my lords in heaven to the souls of men, and Vas, which cometh from the spirits of the intermediate world. Eolin said, 3 states am I in, Ghost, which is ever present and unchangeable, Corpora, which is in places like the earth and stars and sun and moon, and Motion, which is everlasting unrest. So am I, Eolin, mightiest in 3, in all place and all time. When the egg was broken and the shell distributed, lo and behold, the semu of the egg had nowhere to rest, and being void of compact, distributed into the void world and was not seen. Okay. When the egg was broken and the shell distributed, lo and behold, the semu of the egg had nowhere to rest, and being void of compact, distributed in the world and was not seen. Then her too, high Lord of the upper heavens, sent whirlwinds abroad, and they gathered of the substance of the egg and rained it down to the earth. Uz, son of Eolin, ran quickly and turned Anramanius fires to the north, and Eolin touched the earth with his quickening hand, and straightway all the living were created. So Eolin said, Thou, my first begotten son, it shall be thine to keep forever, neither shall there be any other God. But it came to pass in the course of time, the evil voice, Satan, encompassed the earth about with serpents that spake like men and angels, and the serpents made friends with all evil, father of Anramanius, and the women of the tribes of Asu went and tempted the first men, the Ehines, whereby there was born into the world evil offspring. Her too, Lord of the earth, drove the first men out of the region of light, and set highborn angels on the boundaries of Chinvat at the gates of upper heaven to guard the tribes of the faithless ever after. Sound like the story of the Garden of Eden. Trina, hey girl, hey. Queen Israel, shalom. Shayla G, Batswabu, Audrey, shalom. I watched that series, girl. The man who fell to earth, yo, yes. It has a lot of stuff in. I've been meaning to send that message. Definitely. Somebody done read the Lost Book of Enki and some of the stuff we reading through, because it is not a coincidence. Like, it really is not, Audrey. Thank you for mentioning that. If y'all haven't seen that, The Man Who Fell to Earth, go watch that. You can get it on Amazon, and you can watch, at least from my phone, I could watch 2 episodes from, was it Netflix? I think it was Netflix. Was it Netflix? You can watch 2 episodes for free. Then you got to purchase the last 3. So it's 5 in all. They're about 45 minutes each. Yo, blew my mind. I sat and watched it all in one. Well, actually, I fell asleep on after the second one. After I was struggling trying to get the third one to play. And when I realized I had to come to my laptop to purchase it, I was like, I'll do it in the morning. So when we got up Sunday morning, I actually went ahead in there and purchased it and watched the other 3. HBO Max. Okay, yeah. Check it out, y'all. Alazar Shalom. A movie, it's a mini series that Audrey mentioned. And I think they're going to add some more to it based on the last one. Y'all got to check it out. The Man Who Fell to Earth. If y'all been here for the Lost Book of Inky, and since we began reading this, it's going to blow your mind. Y'all just go watch it and y'all let me know what y'all think. Okay. Back here. Her too, verse 15. Her too, Lord of the earth, drove the first men out of the region of light and set highborn angels on the boundaries of Chinvat at the gates of the upper heaven to guard the tribes of Faithis ever after. Nevertheless, evil, being set on foot, soon overspread the earth. So here too rested his hands on his thighs and swore an oath to all light that he would drown the world and all the living. And in answer to the Lord, a seraphim, a mighty fire ship, came down out of the sun region, opening the floodgate of heaven with a sea of water, and all the people perished, save the Ehims, the sacred people, friends of the Lord of earth. So clearly there's a whole different type of understanding of what's happening here on earth, right? So here on earth we get a different story, to whereas when we read the heavenly account, they tell you the details of what was happening in the spiritual realm before the flood actually happened, right? Auntie, shalom, shalom, Belinda Brown, Francis, shalom. All right, y'all, on page 124, verse 16 at the bottom in the Lord's 5th book. So the Lord took the hollow of his hand and lifted up his people and gave them dove's wings, and they flew afar and came to the land where dwelleth the Lord. So it was called Shem, as a proof to all the world. In those days, God was near mortals, so that when an honest man spake, the Lord answered him. And Aramanius was near also, and when an evil man spake, an evil voice answered him. For that reason, the Lord singled out the purest and most virtuous of women, the wisest, strongest, and most faithful, best of men, and married them, giving 2 women to 1 man according to law. And we're going to keep reading. We ain't going to make no comments about this. We're going to keep going. And the heirs of the wisest and most virtuous of men and women were wiser than their parents. And the Lord gave this secret to his people in the house of God, and they gave the knowledge to the chosen people. Her too said, For this reason, O my beloved, shall ye not wed with the drooks, the dark people that burrow in the ground, lest your seed be polluted, and your heirs go down to hell with Anramanius. But Anramanius, evil creator of evil, went to the Drook women, speaking to them in a dark corner. He said, Ye have the root of Babael to make delirious. What? Maybe I said that wrong. Okay. But Anramanius, evil creator of evil, went to the Drook women, speaking to them in a dark corner. He said, Ye have of the root of Babael to make delirious. Fetch it to the white people that came with dove's wings. Fetch, and they will eat and get drunk. And when the young men are drunk, go ye to them, for they are my gift. So of them that came out of the ark of Noah was sin newborn. For the Drooks went in where they were drunk, saying, Lest the white people and the yellow people fall upon us, and our seed perish on the earth. Make us of flesh and kin, bone and bone, blood and blood. Interesting. They wanted to intermingle with them so they all could look alike. Interesting. Here too, the Lord God saw into the darkness, and being compassionate said, A great punishment will I visit on Anramanius for this, his head shall droop in sorrow. But as for the Ehines, being drunk, I will forgive them. As for the newborn people, they shall become the mightiest of all people in the world, because they came out of both darkness and light. The darkness in them shall battle all darkness. The light that is in them shall then master over their own darkness. But as for the droops, they shall go down in darkness forever. Chapter 2. Shem had many tribes who settled on the borders of the sea at Haventi and Gats, and the Lord, her too, dwelt with them, speaking through the chief prophet Tay, who made a record on stone and wood and cloth of the Lord's word, and these were preserved in the valence, or house of God, her too. And when Tay was old and died, the mantle of the Lord's gift fell on Tay's son, who also had power to hear the voice. And he also kept a record of the Lord's words. And then he died, and his son succeeded in the same way. Because of this truth, the Lord called all of them by the sacred name, Tay, the order of which continued for 100 generations. Hey girl, hey Thailand, yeah girl, I missed you. Anukia, shalom, shalom. Lisa, hey girl, hey. Okay. Verse 3. And then he died, and his son succeeded in the same way. Because of this truth, the Lord called all of them by the sacred name Tay, the order of which continued for 100 generations. And it came to pass that the Ehines filled the country far and near with cities, and yet in all the while they killed nothing that had been created alive to breathe on the earth, or in the water, or in the air above. In the early days of the Ehines, the Lord spoke through the chief prophet, saying, when the inhabitants of one city or tribe marry with those of another city or tribe, behold, it is just that the names of father and mother be given to the offspring. But men were in darkness in those days and understood not God. So accordingly, the inhabitants combined the names belonging to the neighboring tribes. That is to say, one tribe said oot or wheat, oot, which is wheat. It says oops, and then it has wheat in parentheses. One tribe said oot, wheat, another tribe for the same thing, and yat, and another tribe said wat, and another hoot, and so on. So the after generations said, this is going to have to be in the title today. So the after generation said, uti wada hoot, wheat. Okay. So as time progressed, they kept changing the name of the word. All of them was referring to wheat. For one tribe said oot, and it was talking about wheat. Another tribe said the same thing, and they said yat, and that was wheat. Another tribe said what, W-A-T. Another said hoot. So when many generations after that, so the after generation said uti wada hoot. And this is what is called, and this was called the Yeha language. And so great were the number and size of the words used that the writings of the ancient prophets were lost because none could understand them. I bet it's like a horrible game of telephone. Somebody should have just said wheat. Remember, wheat. They should have had a picture of wheat and wheat. It just ended up uti wada hoot. What? What are you saying? Uti what? No, what? What? Uti wada hoot. They're putting everything together. Uti wada hoots. They should have just said wheat. They should have held it up. And this was called the Yeha language. And so great were the number and size of words used that the writings of the ancient prophets were lost, because none of them could understand them. The Lord spake, saying, because I desired to preserve the genealogy of my chosen, ye have applied the law to things that are worthless in my sight. Ye have built a Babel And it said Babel is spelled with 2 B's, and then in parentheses it's spelled with 1 B. Ye have built a Babel, a tower of words, so that your tongues are confounded with one another. Ye strove to reach heaven with a multitude of words, but made food for a Hada, and Hada is Hades. Oh yeah, thank you, Audrey. Oh, great Spirit, fill us with your wisdom and truth. Hallelujah. We're on page 125, the Lord's 5th book, chapter 2, in OAHSPE. Down, we're reading an earthly account. All right. Verse 7. The Lord said, come now into Murdhan, a spirit circle, and I will deliver you. So the people sat in crescent, and the Lord came betwixt the horns, saying, behold, ye are Te, but I am the Sri, spirit. My word shall stand against all the world. And after Te, it has reference letter A. So let's see what that says. The letters are found at the end of the chapter. The letter references. The number referencer is at the bottom. Okay, Te, page 137. Te is spelled T-A-U. It could be Tau, right? In Hebrew, I think it's Tau, but I said Te. A crescent is often compared to a bull's horns. Most likely, the laws issued in the edition. I know that's my son. All right, let's go back. Verse 8, page 125. Hear then the commandments of God. Hautot. This is another God. In parentheses is H-A-U-T-O-T. I think it's Hautot. Hear then the commandments of God. Hautot. Because ye have built a tower of words, ye are confounded. But I will not come in anger, but to deliver you. Neither will I write more, nor teach written words, for they are only folly, save the learned. By mouth words will I teach, and ye shall repeat. And ye shall repeat after me. And these shall be sacred words to the end of the world. So the Lord taught orally in the temple, face to face with the people, and they learned the words and the meaning thereof. And those who learned the best, the Lord named Ritvij, R-I-T-V-I-J, because he made them teachers over others. The Lord said, because ye have confounded the language of the ancients, I will give you a new language, and it shall be Vede, or perfect, against all my enemies, nor shall any man more meddle with the words I give. Hereto, Lord said, love thy Lord God only, and with all thy soul. Turn thy face away from the angels who come to thee. They are the emissaries of Anramanius. Hereto said, love the sun and moon and all things on the earth, for they are the Lord's gift. What is spirit? It flieth away, it is nothing. Smite the Druge spirits that prophesy. They are nothing but lies. They are Anramanius emissaries. Learn to prophesy by the sun and by the moon and by the stars. They tell no lies. Ooh, that's good. Let's learn about the clock in the sky. You can't get the Creator's calendar wrong if you're following that, paying attention to that. Learn to prophesy by the sun and the moon and the stars. They tell no lies. The Lord then gave the signs of zodiac, the horses and cows and lions and sheep and birds that rule upon the earth and upon the winds of heaven and on the heat and cold and the sun and moon and stars and spring and summer and fall and winter. But these things are here omitted in this book because they are known in mortal histories to this day. The Lord saith in this day, the Cosman era, behold, O man, in the time of Osiris, I, the Lord, raised up many philosophers on the earth and inspired them not only to fulfill the legends of the ancients, but also to write books of disputation in order to turn man's mind away from the consultation of familiar spirits. After this manner did I inspire men to write, to wit, touching the matter of the egg, and also of Anramanius, they appear never to have been proven, neither are they given on the authority of Hertu, the Lord of the earth. It is reasonable to suppose that the Great Spirit divided up the worlds amongst his gods and lords, and that the earth, Bu, fell into the portion of Hertu, whilst the stars, which are also worlds like this, fell to the other lords and gods. But as for evil gods, like Anramanius, who hath ever seen one? As for Hertu, the Lord, I have seen him myself, and so have thousands of other honest prophets. But when the Lord spake, it was not about foolish stories, but to teach man how to live, that he might be happy himself, and a glory to the Great Spirit. Neither did I ever hear the Lord assert that he was more than the spirit of a man risen up from the earth. In my opinion, therefore, the Lord is the captain over the earth, over all other spirits. But even to know this is not so great a good truth as to know how to do righteously. Of all things, therefore, man should learn, especially what he can see, hear, and prove, rather than of spirits whom he cannot prove nor find when he wanted them. Chapter 3. The Lord said, as a farmer planteth wheat in one field, and rice in another, and flax in another, so I, the Lord, inhabit the earth with the seed of man. Neither shall any wise man say, these things came by chance, that it so happened that one people settled in Japheth, which is China, another in Vidyu, which is India, and another in Arabinia, which is Arabia. Such is the argument of my enemies, saith the Lord, not perceiving wisdom in my work, as it seemeth for a day. They fail to extend judgment in the thousands of years of my plans, and so stubbornly shut themselves up in ignorance, saying, there is no God. For I foresaw the breadth of the earth, and that it should be subdued for the glory of man. And in the early days I divided my armies with wisdom. To Ham I allotted the foundation of the migratory tribes of the earth. And to the tribes of Ham, behold, I selected many colors of men. Let me go back. Okay. Verse 3. To Ham I allotted the foundation of the migratory tribes of the earth, and of the tribes of Ham, behold, I selected many colors of men, whereof I foreordained the name Ham to stand as a living testimony to the end of the world. For I foresaw that the time would come when the nations would look back for histories of my peoples, and I erected certain words and signs which should be testimony in the latter times of earth, of all colors, black, white, yellow, copper, red, and brown, were the tribes of Ham. Nevertheless, they were Ehims, faithists, having flat nails and short arms, and of such as desired to acquire knowledge. And I brought them to a country of sand fields and of fields of rich pastures interspersed, where lived but few natives, the dark people with short hair. Neither omitted I even the hair of the head of man, without providing testimony of my word. Of the Ehims I provided testimony in all the divisions of the earth, with long hair, belonging to the tribes that worship Jehovah, that man of the cosmic era might perceive that the land whence they sprang is not above the water. Let me read that again. Of the Ehims, this is verse 5 on page 127 in chapter 3. Of the Ehims I provided testimony in all the divisions of the earth, with long hair, belonging to the tribes that worship Jehovah, that man of the cosmic era might perceive that the land whence they sprang is not above the water. Behold, the multitude, Yeha language of the tribes of Shem, side by side with the tribes of Japheth, raised I them. And behold, the latter used the derivation, and behold, the latter used the derivation of the panic language of this day. And it has reference number 1 after language of, and it says panic language to this day. Or they use the panic language to this day. All right. Verse 7. For I gave unto the tribes of these 2 different lands my 10 commandments and 10 invocations to be not written, but spoke and taught from mouth to ear, to be sacred in the language given, wherein man shall perceive that the same stories of the egg and of the origin of evil in the world could not have been communicated by mortals. For I locked up sufficient of the panic language in Japheth as a testimony to be discovered in after years, showing that, unlike Ham and Shem, a mighty nation could retain one language for thousands of years. For I foresaw that philosophers would try to prove that languages were of mortal origin, and that they would change according to the growth of knowledge amongst men. Behold, I gave sculptures unto all my people, enjoining some to adhere to the text, and so I preserved the work of my hand. The tribes of Ham were previously ordained with characteristics to make them love to immigrate westward, and the tribes of Japheth and Shem with characteristics to make them love to stay within their own countries, and the tribes of Guatama with characteristics to make them love to go eastward. Remember, Guatama is the Americas, right? Okay. This is interesting, right? And so we would consider the East. I'm not sure if this is still the East because, you know, they didn't screw with the map and stuff. Because Guatama is considered in the West. They call us the West, right? But it's a lot of people that they're saying, oh, we got to get to the East, right? We got to get back to Africa. Like, we're looking at all of this stuff. Everything is still on the table. But this is interesting. Let me go back. I'm going to read verse 12 again. The tribes of Ham were previously ordained with the characteristics to make them love to immigrate westward, and the tribes of Japheth and Shem with the characteristics to make them love to stay within their own countries, and the tribes of Guatama with the characteristics to make them love to go eastward. For I set a boundary to the tribes of Guatama that they should not reach the ocean on the east. And after that, it has reference letter B, right? Guatama. We got oceans all around us, North and South America, right? But you can literally walk from North America right into South America, or vice versa. South America right into North America by way of Texas, right? Now, I did not even realize that. Like, that didn't even click in my head until a few years back, way before everything that happened in 2020. There was all this stuff going on in South America. They walked up from, I think, Central America all the way up to the borders of North America. And they showed bits and pieces on the news. But I really found that out while searching some stuff and went to YouTube. People who were actually walking with this group of people who was migrating, coming up from South America, trying to get into North America. When they got to the borders of Texas, I'm like, wait a minute, hold on. I thought we were parted by water. Clearly, I wasn't paying attention to the map too well. And people on the inside, and what they didn't show, it was a massive group. Like, they show like, they choose the snippets they want to show. But the people who were walking, that were migrating from South America up here to North America, it was a big blob of blackness. I'm like, wait a minute, where's these people coming from? Like, did they catch a boat? Look, you know, me being silly. Like, did they catch a boat from Africa? Did they go to South America and like get stuck and they trying to get out, get back home or something? No, these were black people. All them people that was migrating. It was like, we ain't letting nobody up in here. Y'all need to go back to where y'all at. Like the borders at Texas, they show the fairer skinned people, but it's really a bunch of black people. And you wouldn't see, they don't show that part on the news. They kind of, if you pay attention to the news clippings, it's like they're like sporadic in who they show. They kind of like getting real close. But if they show a massive group, they get back far enough to where you can tell it's a bunch of people. But I think the colors from their clothing and stuff, you can't really pinpoint because it's so far away. I'm like, they are really skilled with the camera. But it made me wonder about why they made it seem a certain way, right? America, the powers that be that's controlling stuff in Guatama have their reasons for portraying the story how they want people to see it, right? But it's really interesting. Y'all should go look at that. I'm sure some of them videos are still up, right? It was a bunch of black people. It's crazy too, right? Some of it was funny. Because some of them was actually getting across the border, right? But it's crazy how they was getting across the borders. These jokers, they were hiding inside of mattresses, right? Inside of mattresses. They would cut holes in the mattresses. 2 people to a queen size mattress. Put it, there was still like a little frame so it wouldn't fall over to the side. They was real smart the way they did it. I'm like, these jokers on one mattress they had pulled down. I'm like, man, why they cutting open the mattress? They think they're bringing drugs over here? They got hip to it because a few people must have got in and they realized what was happening. So it was all these cars coming like, wait a minute, is everybody bringing mattresses? Like, hold on. This might be the cartel trying to smuggle in drugs. No, my G, they were smuggling in real live human people. They cut them mattresses open. Some people in there waking up like, we here. Man, get out the mattress. It was hilarious. Y'all gotta go look it up. Gotta go look it up. Struggling, put in the title in YouTube or something. Struggling what's the word? Smuggling people from South America in mattresses. Something like that. You'll find the videos. It's absolutely hilarious. It is super funny. It's not funny, but it was funny to me. I'm just saying, you know, no disrespect to anybody that may have arrived in a mattress. Oh my God, let me get a sip of water. Okay. Let's go back to verse 12. Page 128. The tribes of Ham were previously ordained with characteristics to make them love to immigrate westward, and the tribes of Japheth and Shem with characteristics to make them love to stay within their own countries, and the tribes of Guatama with characteristics to make them love to go eastward. For I set a boundary to the tribes of Guatama that they should not reach the ocean on the east. And the Lord said, having designed Ham for teaching the barbarian world of me and my dominion, I also prepared them that through their seed, men and women should have their hair neither straight nor short, but long and curled, and red and white and brown, whereby might be traced in after ages the genealogy of nations. Read that again. The Lord said, having designed Ham for teaching the barbarian world of me and my dominion, I also prepared them that through their seed, men and women should have their hair neither straight nor short, but long and curled, and red and white and brown, whereby might be traced in after ages the genealogy of nations. Now, in the midst of 3 great countries, Japheth, Shem, and Ham, was the chief place of the Ehuans, where they founded a new nation, and the Lord called them Parsi, signifying warrior faithist, because he created them as a shield to guard his chosen, the Ehuans. And now the Parsi, there's a reference letter C. So let's go back. Reference letter C on page 137 at the bottom says, this would place the beginning of the Persians at about 13,000 years ago. The same tribe in other countries was called Parsees. Parsees signify defenders of the faith, but it should be pronounced Parasi. Oh, Parasi, or maybe Pharisee. That's what it looked like. Okay. Parsees signify defenders of the faith, but it should be pronounced Parasi. In such words as parcel and parachute, which we have adopted in our language, para signifies defense or shield. It is likely that Parsi were so much under the influence of the Ehines, the sacred people, that they only went to war in defense. Okay, back to page 128. Verse 15. The difference betwixt the Ehuans and the Parsi was that the Ehuans lived near and about the Ehines, but the Parsians lived in a nation by themselves. Nevertheless, they were all of the same blood and kin, being half-breeds betwixt the Ehines and the native Drooks, and they were large and mostly of color of new copper. And because they were favored of the Lord gave them separate laws and commanded them not to mix with the Drooks, the which commandment they kept for more than 1,000 years. But in the course of time, the Parsians were tempted by the Drooks and fell from their high estate, and they became cannibals. And the Lord sent the Gonds, to whom he delivered his oral scriptures, to travel in search of his people. And lo and behold, 10 tribes of the Lord's people were lost in the wilderness, and this was the country of the Parsians, and that land was filled with wild goats. Hence came the name Land of Goats. The lost tribes, not being flesh eaters, were at a loss for food, and they said, "Come, let us live on goat's milk." And so they lived for a long season, taming the goats and keeping herds of them. And they roved about, driving their herds with them, for which reason they took the name of shepherd kings. And the Lord looked on them with favor, saying, "These that call themselves shepherd kings have this country. Behold, out of the seed of these people will I do mighty wonders." The Lord said, "What man can discover I, the Lord, left for him to discover? What man could not discover I, the Lord, taught him?" Let me read that again. The Lord said, "What man can discover I, the Lord, left for him to discover? What man could not discover I, the Lord, taught him." To the shepherd kings revealed I how to make leather out of skins. Neither had man any means to make this discovery. The shepherd kings made bags of leather in which they carried milk, which was thus churned, and they made butter, which was the first butter made of this world. Where we at? 44 minutes. We might as well just keep on going. Chapter 4, 5. We're just going to keep going. We're just going to keep going today, y'all. And we'll probably actually be done with it tomorrow. Okay. Chapter 4. God said, "Without evil preserved I the Ehine race as the foundation of my light, wherefrom I could reach forth to the tribes of darkness. For I foreordained not to go within darkness to battle it, but to stand without and give an example of righteousness for man to look upon. Neither planned I from the beginning that my chosen should labor without examples of cities and kingdoms of righteousness. The evil man and evil priest, who are subjects to Satan and his hosts, remain in evil, preaching righteousness without a city or kingdom of example. But my chosen go away by themselves and build their cities as a testimony of their faith in the Father. And they practice the fullness of my commandments by their lives toward one another. To him who saith, 'This is mine,' I have not spoken. To him who saith, 'My house, my lands,' I have not spoken. For inasmuch as these things belong to them, such men belong to such things and not to me. Ooh, that's good. For inasmuch as these things belong to them, such men belong to such things and not to me. For illustration of which truth, I raised up separate from the world's people the Ehenes, who were my living examples of righteousness. Think not, however, that the Ehenes were the perfection of manhood and womanhood. They were not a developed race, nor righteous because of their own knowledge. By the constant presence of my exalted angels, they were obsessed to righteousness, being restrained away from evil. They were my sermon before the tribes of droops and cannibals that covered the earth over, and by virtue of signs and miracles, and by non-resistance, preserve I them. For man of himself evolveth only to power in evil. Wherefore, O man, thou shalt behold my dominion over the races of men, to work righteousness and goodwill. And my examples reached into the souls of the barbarians, so that in after ages I should prepare them to hear my voice and to comprehend my commandments. For it is the fullness of light amongst men, when without my presence, nor the presence of my host, they shall understand virtue and knowledge, practicing them of their own accord, in which time men shall perceive that righteousness and peace and love toward one another are the foundation of the happiness of the Spirit and the only light of its resurrection. The Lord said, Think not that I am come to one nation alone, leaving the others in darkness. I came not to one alone, but unto all the divisions of the earth. According to what was required for them at times, so held I my hand over them, and they accomplished that which was designed from the beginning. It being not the will of Jehovah that man should be forever led, because forsooth his Lord saith, but that man should ultimately have the light of practicing good works organically from infancy up. The Lord said, A teacher that doeth all things for his pupils also sacrificeth his pupils. He who teaches his pupil wrong sinneth against the Father. He who teaches his pupil not at all is accessory to evil. So standeth the Lord your God over the children of men. Behold, I have demonstrated that my chosen can maintain themselves unharmed amongst barbarians. Also, that by unrestrained marriages, a sacred people is quickly lost amongst barbarians. For man, witnessing terrible conflicts, should rather desire sons of strong limbs and arms and crafty minds to do murderous work abundantly, from which condition he had no incentive to rise in gentleness and love for the glory of the Spirit, that I, your Lord, might show after generations first that without my hand in the work, no good nor peace could come amongst men, and second, that only by a race of Ehenes, as examples of my power, through signs and miracles, could the barbarians be reached for their own good. Not only did I leave the ruins of my cities, which had no gates of entrance, and houses without doors of entrance, that ye might have testimony of the race of Ehenes, but I have shown you that only by such procedure could the barbarians be induced to a higher evolution. Think not, O man, that I did not foresee the time when man should question whether the Great Spirit ever placed a Lord over the earth, and that man should say, Behold, there is no Lord and no God. For I foresaw these things, and provided angels to go in advance, to show first the evolution of the races of men from out of the lowest darkness, and second, that the cause of the evolution came from the Great Spirit, and was directed unto righteousness, but had not been so, but for the Lord your God. For I left sufficient tribes unto this day who dwell in darkness, even cannibals, as a testimony that of themselves they possess nothing to cause a desire for evolution into knowledge and peace and industry and love and good works unto one another. Will not man say, one people is raised up in consequence of the presence of their neighbor, and without a Lord or a God, and the angels of heaven? Now behold, I have left savages at your door, and ye raise them not up, but destroy them, showing you that even your wisest and most learned have no power in resurrection. Neither have I left any way open for the resurrection of barbarians, save by the examples of the faithless, Ehims, who shall practice righteousness and miracles. And there shall rise up those who will do these things, and they shall succeed. And because of their success, they shall also be testimony of the Ehim race, in whom I laid the foundation for the redemption of the whole earth. Where we at? All right, chapter 5. We got a few more minutes. We'll go ahead and read chapter 5. Thus the Lord established the 5 peoples who were saved from Pan, and he commanded them to preserve Panic words in their respective countries, and they so preserved them, many of which exist to this day. Here followed then what became of these Ehims, to wit, those that came to Guatama, survived 21,000 years and then became extinct as to tribes. And it has reference to after tribes, and it says extinct as to tribes. So their tribes became extinct. I think that's what it's saying. Yeah, maybe the whole people and the tribes, but I think, hold on. Though I'm gonna just keep reading, we'll see. Those that came to Guatama survived 21,000 years and then became extinct as to tribes. Those that came to Japheth survived 21,000 years and then became extinct as to tribes. And it has reference letter 3 after tribes there as well. And it says the same thing, extinct as to tribes. Those that came to Shem survived 12,000 years and then became extinct by amalgamation. An amalgamation has reference letter D after it. And let's go and see what that says. Reference letter D, page 137. Nevertheless, in hundreds of years after, there came into Shem Ehims from Japheth, who survived thousands of years. See the first book of God, chapter 14, verse 11, 1891 edition. Okay. Let's look at it real quick. Hold on. Let's find out where it is first. First book of God, chapter 14. I think that's 14. XIV, is that 14? Y'all know me in Roman numerals. Okay. First book of God. What edition is this? This is 1882. Hold on. 1890. Oh. Let me check again. Okay. That's the 1891. This is the 1882 edition. Book of God's Word. No, that didn't say that. First book of God. That's not in here. Oh, I kept looking over. It is. First book of God, page 263. Okay. Chapter XIV. Okay, it's at the bottom. XIV, yeah, 14. What verse did it say? Verse 11. What? Okay, it says, Ramsat had prophesied, moreover, with the coming of Brahma is the end of the Ehin race in Shem, vid you. Okay. That still don't make any more sense. It's just letting us know that's when they died out. But this is interesting though. It's talking about Abram. We'll get to this book. Okay. All right. We're just following the reference through. All right. Let's go back to where we was at. Oh, back over here. Page 132. Verse 5. I read it again. Those that came to Shem survived 12,000 years and then became extinct by amalgamation. Those that came to Ham survived 21,000 years and then became extinct by amalgamation. And it has reference 4 after amalgamation there, which says, and even after this, Jehovah preserved them in all the world as a scattered people. Verse 6, I read it again. Those that came to Ham survived 21,000 years and then became extinct by amalgamation. And even after this, Jehovah preserved them in all the world as a scattered people. And after scattered people, go back to the reference letters because you have reference letter E, which says on page 137, reference letter E, see God's book of Esra, chapter 11, verse 13, 14, and 15, 1881 edition. Okay, let's look at it. Let's find it first. The book of Esra. Go back to the table of contents. Remember, we reading through it. I'm reading to see y'all just like I would be doing if I was reading by myself, checking out all these references. Just to make sure we keeping everything in its proper context. Esra, page 585. Keep my mark. 585. Okay, book of Esra, chapter IX, which is 11. Oh, wait. IX? I went too far. IX. Okay. IX, verses 13, 14, and 15. Okay. Verse 13. The time is also now at hand when the Ehings will cease to dwell on the earth. The darkness which is necessary to the earth will be too much for them. The heavens that have heretofore received their spirits shall be dissolved, and the plateau thereof removed to the outer rim of the earth's vortex. The Lord's reports showed there were at this time on earth 2,300,000 Ehings. Of these, 700,000 inhabited Egypt and western Arabia, 200,000 inhabited China and Japheth of the ancients, and the balance, for the most part, inhabited North Guatama toward Han-Yapan. Okay, so up in verse 13, after Ehings, it has reference number 12. And at the bottom it says, the Ehings, the sacred people, the mound builders, will cease to dwell. And all the way back down at the end of verse 14, it had toward Han-Yapan, and that's reference letter D here. So let's check out what Han-Yapan is. I wonder if it's... No, that's not Japan. That was like No, that was the language. Zapan, which came from Pan, which is where Japan got their name. They're the remnant of Pangea that sunk. Like they're like the living witnesses of today of that, which is why they've been kept separate from a lot of stuff. Okay, hold on. Ooh, this long. The book of Escra is long. I forgot what letter I'm supposed to be looking for. Hold on. D. Okay, we found it. Page 640. Okay. Hanyapan is Central America. Okay. Central America, 1882 edition. All right, boom. That's it. So let's go all the way back to where we was at. Back on page 132. Where we at? 102. All right, we'll finish reading this chapter. We almost done. You'll be done in a couple minutes. Okay. Those that came to Ham survived 21,000 years and then became extinct by amalgamation. Even after this, Jehovah preserved them in all the world as a scattered people. Those of Guatama attained to 1,000 large cities and 3,000 small cities, being more than 4 million souls. And they never had any king or queen or other ruler save the Lord, who ministered unto them through the city fathers. And they retained their sacred name, Guatama, to the last, but the Ehuans called them Ochlapan, signifying people of another world or another continent. And after world, it has reference letter F. Let's check it out. On page 137. Okay, let me read this again. Okay, I'm going to read this verse again, then I'm going to come right over here and read this. Those of Guatama attained to 1,000 large cities and 3,000 small cities, being more than 4 million souls. And they never had any king or queen or other ruler save the Lord, who ministered unto them through the city fathers. And they retained their sacred name of Guatama to the last. But the Ehuans called them Ochlopan, signifying people of another world. And in brackets, it has continent. Reference letter F on page 137 says, the North American Indians still have a legend of the mound builders, that they were people who came from another world and dwelt on earth for a long season to teach them of the Great Spirit and of the summer land and the sky. That's the 1882 edition. And in course of time, they became diminutive and desired not to marry. And there came great darkness, Kogak, on the earth, with falling ashes and heat and fevers. And so the Lord took them up to heaven. Those of Japheth attained to 2,000 large cities and 7,000 small ones, being more than 8 million souls. And they had no king, serving the Lord only. And they returned the name Jaffa to the last. But the Ehuans called them Tuagit, signifying people of spirit light. And there came Aji on the earth, and it touched them with impotency, and they brought forth no more heirs, so the Lord took them home. Those of Shem attained to 600 large cities and 2,000 small cities, being more than 2 million souls. Neither had they any king, but served the Lord through the city fathers. And they retained their name, Shem, to the last, but the Ehuans called them Sri Vede-iyi, signifying people of the true light, woman-like. And impotence came upon them, and they disappeared, even as a drop of water in the sunlight, and no man knew when they ceased to be. But hoping to preserve their seed to the Lord, many of them married with the Ehuans, but their children became Ehuans also, neither having the silken hair, nor the musical voices of the Ehings, nor the light of the upper heavens. Those of Ham attained to 1,200 large cities and 3,000 small cities, being 4 million souls. But being mixed colors, they did not become impotent, but they broke the law of God more than all other faiths, being of warm blood, and they mixed greatly with the Ehuans, and they had no kings nor queens, serving the Lord only through the city fathers. And they retained the name of Ham to the last. When they ceased to exist as a separate people because of their amalgamation with the Ehuans. The tribes that went into the 2 ships to the north land, Japan, no man could draw the line after 1,000 years betwixt them and the Ehuans, for they mingled therewith and were lost as Ehims. Nevertheless, they redeemed the barbarians into wisdom and peace. And that is what we'll pause at today. This is getting pretty good. Look, Francis, some people don't really want to be talking about that though, right? Listen. Look, remember when I was telling y'all when I was okay, so I was going through these different phases as I'm coming into truth and looking at things and weighing out everything, right? So you look at people where they believe Africa is the promised land, right? And I was 100% gung-ho all for it until I began to cross-examine that information with the information I was learning about America. I'm like, wait a minute, hold up. That makes a whole lot of sense. But this makes a whole lot of sense too. And so we got to start looking a little bit deeper. I'm like, okay, they both can't be, or could they both be, right? And I'm like, well, I don't know. So everything. And so I started looking and I was like, man, America does look a little bit more and more like the promised land. So I'm sitting here, look, I'm just telling you the thoughts that I was having in my head based on all that I'm seeing today and the shenanigans that I understand of the past. I'm like, wouldn't it be something, the current going thing of the powers that be, right? They trick you out of what is actually yours and belongs to you. And so it's like, sometimes they'll force you, but now they got a little more savvy with things to make you choose. It's like you're choosing to go. Like they ain't pushing you out, right? Some people, like you have these arguments and stuff where some people like go back to Africa or just things like that. But the more I look at it, and then I don't know, I even think at this point now with what I understand, even though I have done the DNA from like 3 different places and looking at the DNA and my background and what it says, I'm kind of questioning it. Because if they're all in cahoots together, right? If they're all in cahoots, and here, let me tell you something. When at first I was like, I'm not really too sure. But then when I realized, right, how many resources are actually here in America as well. Like I came across this whole study, like this would seem to go off the beaten path of what I'm studying, with like the oil and stuff, right? Now, America is like the great melting pot where we trade with everybody else, but America rarely ever taps into its own sources, right? America is very rich in a lot of resources, and especially oil, right? And especially the oil that we got like in the, I got this whole printed dissertation book from a study that they've done. A guy, his name is, oh my gosh, it's right there on the tip of my tongue. Hold on, I'm gonna have to put the oil guy. I'm gonna share this with y'all. The oil guy. That's not his name, and you can't even find him under the oil guy, but that's how I remember him. And I my book with that stuff, I actually printed out his manual. It's like this thick. And I was going through, I'm like, wait a minute, America has this stuff? I'm like, why are we doing all this? Why do we have famines and all of these things? Like we're short of stuff when America have all these resources here, right? Because they want to control the other nation's resources. They want to say when, they want to say who, without giving up any of its resources. And all this crap we see on the news, like America is not really ever going to ever have to go through a famine. But if you watch the news and you let them tell it, we about at the end of our rope here. And that is not the truth. That is so far from the truth. But if you brainwash the masses and have them thinking this, they scrambling for stuff like, y'all, there is really not a famine for real. Right? What y'all can see, the famines that they are creating is from the news. They getting you all hyped up. If they had never mentioned the word toilet paper on the news, we wouldn't have had this whole immediate depletion of toilet paper that we already had out in stock. The news did that. Every time they mention something, breast milk, they mention it. What people do, they get scared and they go buy up all the resources. They stop the ships from coming in because a bunch of foolish folk need to make sure it's clean, COVID and all this other stuff. I'm like, y'all, they're playing the game. They're playing us. But if people are constantly getting their information from the news and that's what feeds them and that's what they believe, if they're not using their own brains, you can just kind of step back and common sense will show you, wait a minute, something ain't right here. Like if people would wake up, like we really, I mean, guys, there is no famine. It really isn't. All this stuff they tell us is absolute lies. I could talk about this for days, but anyway, I'm going to get y'all this, but he talks about the oil that's here in America and the pact that was made with some of the other countries not to really ever tap into America's resources. So even when Trump was in office and they talked about tapping some of the oil lines, and that's what Trump was. Everybody may not like Trump. I ain't neither here nor we didn't talk about it, but what he was saying because of how they portrayed him in the news. Now, nobody had a problem with Trump until he started we'll just say running America, because he really wasn't Congress. All of them, they really running. He's just the spokesperson and the fall guy for if anything go awry, if we mess something up behind the scene, blame it on the president. Nobody ever blames Congress for real. And the president is just a spokesperson. They're doing what they didn't like. I'm not to nor against, but I'm just telling you what I've observed, right? I'm like, wait a minute. I was like, okay, the world was loving Trump before he got in there and actually started telling the truth. Sure, he loved women, all this other stuff, don't know how to talk out his mouth, which most of the men, and they do the same thing, if not worse than what he did. He just got money. He can flaunt his arrogantness, right? But what he was saying was the absolute truth. And he mentioned something about the Alaskan oil pipes. And when I'll never forget this day. When I heard him say it on like the news broadcast, he mentioned something about the Alaskan oil pipes. When he said it, my ear had perked up because I had recently for like 3 weeks had already been reading this document that this guy that was talking about, he was in there with the Rockefellers and stuff and what they were doing about the oil in America, how we're not going to tap into any of America's sources while they thinking Africa is rich in resources. That is not the only place that's rich in resources like that. They just chose to use that place because they didn't really, because this is like home. They made this their home and they don't really want to destroy this. We want to preserve all our good stuff, but we're going to extract it from other places. I'm like, holy crap, what? And so then they play certain people here, people that look like me. You ain't even from here. My G, I'm native to Guatama, right? Now that I found, I was like, wait a minute, I am native here, right? You trying to get us, you brainwashing us. You got the DNA companies in cahoots with you. And I noticed, I was like, wait a minute, something is wrong about this. I was looking, I was like, wait, like I have no blood here, like nothing, 0% from the Americas. It all comes from over here from Africa. I'm like, well, okay, well, that's interesting. That kind of threw me off based on some of the things I understood about my family line, some things I remember my grandma said. I was like, wait a minute. And it wasn't adding up. You know, so I'm just like, huh. So then they start playing this whole thing and they start even don't think I'm blaspheming. Even back in the day with Martin Luther King and all of this stuff. A lot of people think Martin Luther King was assassinated for one thing, when Martin Luther King was assassinated for a whole other thing, shining a light on some of this stuff we're talking about now about America. It wasn't like the segregate, he trying to raise the black people up. No, they were trying to tell people the truth about what the powers that be were doing here in America. They're trying to get you to believe that you don't belong here. You're not native here. And they want you to choose to leave this land. They want you to give away your inheritance. They want you to give it away so they can have it. If they make you believe that you're supposed to be over there, they just, and people just, I'm like, oh my gosh. I was like, oh my gosh, it is one lie after another. I'm like, people, stop getting on the ships. Stop. Like you're leaving your inheritance. Like they take stuff away from you here. And it's like, Maji, I ain't supposed to be here anyway. Take me back to Africa. You brought me over here. Take me back. We ain't choose to come. I'm like, oh my gosh. And the lies run so deep, y'all. It is so crazy. It is so crazy. It's like once you wake up from one delusion, you have to break through and wake up from the next delusion. All the delusions connect together. It's the big cahoots is to get you to give up this land, to give up the Guatamas, right? This is the sacred land. If you would just think about it, Why hasn't this land been destroyed like some of the other lands and raped and pillaged and like, y'all, it's like right in front of our face. And if it was a snake, it would have bitten all of us, right? It's right here. It's right here. It's right here, right? I could talk about this all day, but I'm going to show y'all. I'm going to give y'all this, it's PDF. I know it's pretty thick. It may take you a little while to get through it. And I still haven't gone all the way through it, but the beginning pages, and you can even see him, I think his name is, no. I know, Will. His name is Lindsay something. I got it saved. I got to pull it up and I'm going to share it with y'all. I'm going to share it in the comment section of this video, in the community section, and on Facebook. But y'all have to look at it. You really have to pay attention to some of the details. If you can just like put aside all your feelings and what you feel and what you've been taught and what you've been getting hyped up in church and even in the Hebrew roots and Shem and all this, if you can just put your emotions aside and step back without using any kind of bias, like you were an investigator investigating a crime scene, like have no attachments to anything, even that you think, whatever you think that's yours, put it all aside, have no attachments and look at it in a very unbiased way. And things will begin when you're able to take your biased glasses off, then you'll be able to connect some of the dots. And that's what I had to do when I did it. I'm like, holy crap. And it's like a whole nother level of this. When you can remove the bias and not react out of emotion, a whole nother world of truth opens up to you. And a lot of people aren't really ready to hear that level of truth. You thought waking up to the deception of religion was crazy. But when you wake up to the deception of the truth of land masses and who is really who and what is really what, y'all find me there. When you get there, call for me. I'm like, hey sis, I'm right over here. You made it? Welcome. We need help over here, right? Yeah, so, but that's it for today. That what you're trying to call me?
Yes, what are you doing, but I came over here just to get on it. Mom.
Yes, hold on. What Mama say?
Mom, I can't move.
Okay, all right. Give me. I don't know how to do that. You gonna have to wait a second. Hold on, I'm about to end this interview. Okay. They getting up. They starting. So let's go ahead and end this. All right, y'all. So I'm gonna share this with y'all. Give me a few moments. Let me pull some of this stuff together, and I'm gonna share it. But look into it, y'all. Whatever y'all find, come back and share it with me, because I'm steadily, daily researching all these things, and I don't have all the pieces of the puzzle. It's things that I'm looking for that I know, like, wait a minute, something is off. This is very important. But when you go looking into stuff, it's almost like people are playing like, shh, don't tell them, shh, don't tell them. Right? They're trying to keep it a secret as long as they possibly can, right? But if people knew, there could literally be a revolution. I ain't even gonna say overnight. I would say with social media, with the help of social media, within a matter of hours, right? And it probably, let me just say that. I'm going to just say that. That's it. That's all I'm going to say. All right, y'all. It is Tuesday, the last day of May. May 31st, 2022, day 122 of year 4 of reading through the books of the Law and the Prophets. And of the 4-year consecutive day count, day 1140. We read, oh, girl, get that. It's spilling. Get it.
Mom.
Yes.
Can you tell time because I just keep moving to get on back.
No, I know
you.
Listen, y'all. Listen, y'all. Stop it. We read in the OAHSPE pages 122 to page 133, which is the Lord's 5th book. And we didn't get to the meditation book today. We might get to it tomorrow. We'll see.
She gets on that every day.
Can we wait to argue about this when I get offline? All right, y'all. So that being said, thank y'all for hanging out. May y'all continue to bless you in all that you do and in your search for truth. May you be able to look at the truth without being biased and be able to apply the truth to your life and walk in it. All right, beautiful people. I love y'all. I see y'all back here tomorrow morning, bright and early, 7:15 a.m. Eastern Standard Time.
No!